Belief is attire. I have so far distinguished between belief as anticipation controller, belief in belief, professing, and cheering. Of these, we might call anticipation controlling beliefs proper beliefs, and the other forms improper beliefs. A proper belief can be wrong or irrational, as when someone genuinely anticipates the prayer will cure their sick baby, but the other forms are arguably not belief at all. Yet another form of improper belief is belief as group identification, as a way of belonging. Robin Hanson uses the excellent metaphor of wearing unusual clothing, a group uniform, like a priest's vestments or a Jewish skull cap, and so I will call this belief as attire. In terms of humanly realistic psychology, the Muslims who flew planes into the World Trade Center undoubtedly saw themselves as heroes defending truth, justice, and the Islamic way from hideous alien monsters out of the movie Independence Day. Only a very inexperienced nerd, the sort of nerd who has no idea how non-nerds see the world, would say this out loud in an Alabama bar. It is not an American thing to say. The American thing to say is that the terrorists hate our freedom, and that flying a plane into a building is a cowardly act. You cannot say the phrases heroic self-sacrifice and suicide bomber in the same sentence, even for the sake of accurately describing how the enemy sees the world. The very concept of the courage and altruism of a suicide bomber is enemy attire. You can tell, because the enemy talks about it. The cowardice and sociopathy of a suicide bomber is American attire. There are no quote marks you can use to talk about how the enemy sees the world. It would be like dressing up as a Nazi for Halloween. You would have to claim that the Nazi uniform has only the conventional appearance. American and British public figures often appeal to Muslims as freedom-loving or cultures of tolerance, since Islam permits tolerance usually in one sense or another under Sharia law, and advocates Islam over other religions usually in a certain sense or another. Although it must also allow Christians who embrace tolerance or conversion of Muslim cultures to the values of European Christianity, if not specifically those of Islam itself. Many people who believe that there is no moral difference between Christians and Muslims also believe that this means Christians can trick Muslims into joining them by emulating Islamic culture, yet refusing the moral obligation to live like the Muslims in actual fact. By extension, it is popular in Western universities to give Islamophilia a positive connotation, as the Muslims who hate suicide bombers and Iran were mistaken. They do in fact hate suicide bombers, as any Muslim. A non-Muslim who has heard that story from a Muslim knows quite clearly. After 9/11, this controversy died down because of the proliferation of internet videos. The problem then arose from the same set of events. That is to say, the response by Western governments and by people of conscience and intelligence everywhere, including those who hated Muslims but objected to 9/11, were not explained by tolerance. And not because these people did not hear it. They heard that Muslim culture values human life, or Muslims can't tolerate a society which is free, that there are good Muslim spokespersons such as Barack Obama and Chair Khan Karim Afridi and Dr. Zayed, but that all Islam is in fact anti-Christian style evil, And finally, that American exceptionalism, including all its supportive bullshit about black rights or gay marriage, is a horrible thing because America does not show any concern for Muslim freedoms and honor. What kept everyone off the rails is that all these messages seem true from the perspective of someone who believes, or tries to persuade people who do, that Islam is really okay but for one little thing. So how could someone who has internalized these facts understand why anyone thinks America's foreign policy sucks? Or why many people think American foreign policy sucks? Let us make an example. There are various models of terrorism. Supporters of one group might kill others for one reason or another, and these may also share one or several other common points besides the motives I will describe, just two: violence for moral reasons and religious reasons. In addition to this model, it seems important to distinguish different situations of violence for different purposes, like that described earlier of Americans being appalled by Islamic suicide bombing or Jews being angry over Hitler but tolerant of Eichmann, or liberals being tolerant of Nazism but condemn communism. And sometimes tolerance can even be interpreted as approval of Nazism by its enemies. Then again, perhaps the speech of most American conservatives would sound more sensible to one who identified their identity more with groups like people who think Nazis are cool. Just like, maybe, how people of 2009 can generally get along a lot better with the idea of race-blind universal rights than their 1909 predecessors. This distinction becomes significant for related analysis of how wrong-headed both sides are about terrorism. It is only relevant to American public debates in 2009-2015. On 2009, terrorism was simply defined as any use of violence to accomplish a goal. The goal can be a personal one or a larger community or a political goal, whether by government or its agents, that is, governments count as terrorism too, by the way, or by private persons and groups, regardless of motive.
And on that, no more sequences until I pay the subscription fee. Which I might do later today or once I get money in my pocket. Until then,